What do you get when you create a new world championship and then book it like you have absolutely no idea what you're doing? You get the WWE Universal Championship and its 14 chaotic reigns that defy all logic. I'm about to walk you through every single champion, from the guy who held it for one day to the beast who treated it like a part-time job. And by the end, you'll understand why this title became one of wrestling's most expensive mistakes that somehow lasted 8 years. Finn Balor. Picture this scenario, if you will. WWE creates a brand new world championship with all the fanfare they can manage, builds an entire tournament around crowning the first champion, and then watches their inaugural title holder give up the belt before most people have finished their morning coffee. That's exactly what happened with Finn Balor and the Universal Championship, setting the tone for what would become wrestling's most cursed title. SummerSlam 2016 was supposed to be a historic night for Balor. The Irish wrestler had climbed through WWE's tournament bracket to reach the final against Seth Rollins. And when he hit that coup de grace for the victory, he made history as the very first Universal Champion. The crowd went wild, the confetti fell, and then reality hit like a freight train. What happened during that match changed everything, though. Balor took a nasty bump into the barricade that separated his shoulder, and you could see the concern growing on everyone's faces as the match continued. The medical staff backstage knew something was seriously wrong, but Balor pushed through to finish the match and capture his moment. The problem was that his moment was about to become a reign of 22 hours, the shortest in the title's history. The next night on Raw, Balor walked to that ring knowing he had to do something no champion wants to do. He stood there in front of thousands of fans and millions watching at home, holding a championship he'd waited his entire career to win, and he had to give it back after less than a day. The disappointment was written all over his face as he placed the title on the mat and walked away. He vacated the belt the next night, forcing WWE to run a fatal four-way on Raw to crown a replacement. This wasn't just a bad start for Balor's championship run. This was the moment that established the Universal Championship as a title that would spend more time being vacated than actually defended. WWE had created their new crown jewel, only to watch it slip through their fingers on day one. With their inaugural champion gone and no backup plan in sight, WWE scrambled to find someone, anyone, to fill the void. Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens won a fatal four-way elimination match on Raw to claim the vacant title, becoming Universal Champion through the most anticlimactic process possible. There was no grand tournament, no special storyline, and no months of building toward this moment. Owens won because WWE needed a warm body to hold their new championship, and he happened to be in the right place at the right time. What happened next was fascinating, though. The character direction had him play a reluctant defensive heel, who avoided title defenses rather than seeking out competition. He formed an alliance with Chris Jericho that was built around creative ways to get Owens counted out or disqualified, allowing him to keep the championship without actually having to beat anyone. Their bromance became must-see television, building toward the festival of friendship that wrestling fans still talk about today. This survival strategy became even more obvious when legends started showing up on Raw. Every time Goldberg's music hit, you could see the terror in Owens' eyes as he realized he might have to face someone who could end his reign in 30 seconds. He would hide behind Jericho or find excuses to avoid confrontations, turning the Universal Championship into something he was desperately trying to hold on to rather than proudly carrying. The strange thing was that this reluctant approach actually worked, because Owens wasn't hot-shotting the title around or treating it like a prop. The Universal Championship started to feel important again. His cowardly character made fans want to see him lose, which is exactly what a heel champion should do. Owens proved that the Universal Championship could work with consistent booking and a clear character direction. His 188-day reign stabilized the belt and made it feel like a real-world title for the first time. Even though he stumbled into the role by accident, his run showed that WWE's new title could be meaningful with the right approach. Unfortunately, WWE's solution to replacing him involved bringing back someone who hadn't been seen in over a decade. Goldberg's first reign. Wrestling fans hadn't seen Goldberg in 12 years when his music hit during Raw in October 2016. The crowd went absolutely crazy because people remembered watching him dominate WCW back in the late 90s. His return felt like a big deal, and WWE knew they had struck gold with the surprise appearance. The energy in that arena was electric as fans chanted his name and remembered all those classic WCW moments. WWE built up the Fastlane 2017 match between Goldberg and Kevin Owens like it was going to be a competitive fight. The company promoted it as Owens finally getting his chance to prove himself against a legend. They showed video packages of Owens preparing for the biggest match of his championship reign, and fans expected to see a back-and-forth battle that would establish the Universal Champion as a legitimate threat. What actually happened at Fastlane was completely different. Goldberg destroyed Kevin Owens in a lightning-quick squash. The match started with Goldberg hitting a spear, then another spear, followed by a jackhammer, and that was it. Owens looked like he had never been in a wrestling ring before. The crowd was shocked, but not in a good way. WWE had just made their current champion look like a complete joke in front of thousands of people. Goldberg's quick win cost Owens a WrestleMania World title shot and set up Goldberg versus Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 33. This 28-day championship reign was never about creating compelling television or building toward future storylines. WWE wanted a quick ratings boost and figured that putting the title on a familiar face would get people talking. Fans saw it as a nostalgia play. Short-term boost, long-term problem. Fans quickly realized that this wasn't about making good wrestling television. WWE was willing to sacrifice months of storytelling and character development for a temporary nostalgic moment. This reign showed that the company would throw their current roster under the bus whenever they needed a quick fix. What came next would make Goldberg's brief run look like a model of consistency: Brock Lesnar's first reign. Brock Lesnar's first reign stretched roughly 503 days, according to WWE's official recognition, during which he defended it far less often than fans expected a world champion to. This wasn't just a part-time schedule, this was practically a seasonal appearance contract disguised as a championship reign. When Lesnar beat Goldberg at WrestleMania 33, WWE thought they were getting their monster champion back, but what they actually got was wrestling's most expensive absentee landlord. The first few weeks after WrestleMania felt normal enough, but then the pattern started to emerge. Lesnar would disappear for weeks at a time, leaving Raw without its world champion for entire months. Fans would tune in every Monday night hoping to see their champion, only to get disappointed week after week. The Universal Championship became like a mythical object that people talked about but rarely saw. Raw's creative team had to perform miracles just to keep storylines moving forward. They would build entire feuds around the idea that someone wanted to challenge Lesnar, even though nobody knew when he might actually show up to accept those challenges. Number one contenders would wait months for their title shots while Lesnar was off doing whatever part-time champions do when they're not working. Paul Heyman spent months selling an absent champion on Raw because Lesnar simply wasn't on weekly TV. He would come out week after week to remind people that Brock Lesnar still existed and still held the Universal Championship. Heyman's promos were the only proof fans had that the title hadn't been quietly retired. The strangest part was watching mid-card championships feel more important than the Universal Championship. The Intercontinental and United States titles were being defended regularly and driving storylines, while WWE's top prize gathered dust somewhere in Lesnar's gym bag. This 503-day reign established the Universal Championship as something that existed in theory rather than practice. WWE had turned their world title into a part-time attraction that showed up when convenient rather than when needed. Eventually, though, WWE would find someone to take the title from Lesnar and restore some consistency to Raw. What nobody could have predicted was how quickly real life would derail those carefully laid plans. Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns had finally captured the Universal Championship at SummerSlam 2018 and looked ready to carry WWE's flagship show for the foreseeable future. After years of mixed reactions from fans, WWE appeared to have long-term plans for making Reigns their top guy once and for all. SummerSlam 2018 felt like the coronation WWE had been building toward for years. Reigns defeated Brock Lesnar to finally win the Universal Championship, ending another part-time reign and putting the title on someone who would actually show up every week. The company appeared to have storylines already being mapped out months in advance. WWE's creative team was building toward major feuds and pay-per-view matches that would establish Reigns as the definitive Universal Champion. WWE appeared to have long-term plans, but real life intervened. The pieces were all there for the company to finally execute their vision for Reigns as the undisputed top star. Then that October night on Raw changed everything in ways nobody could have predicted. Reigns walked to the ring and delivered news that stopped the wrestling world in its tracks. He announced that his leukemia had returned, and he had to step away from wrestling immediately. The crowd fell silent as the reality of the situation hit everyone at once. The emotional weight of that moment transformed how people viewed professional wrestling itself. Fans who had booed Reigns for years suddenly found themselves supporting him through something far more important than any championship reign. WWE had to throw out months of carefully planned storylines and completely rebuild their Universal Championship picture from scratch. This roughly 63 to 64-day reign that was cut short when he announced a leukemia recurrence proved that real life doesn't care about booking plans or creative directions. His vacating forced WWE to rework the title picture and set up a match for the vacant championship at Crown Jewel. No matter how much WWE tries to control their narratives, sometimes circumstances beyond their control force them to change course instantly and dramatically. The company now faced the challenge of finding someone to fill the void once again. Brock Lesnar's second reign. That reign began at Crown Jewel 2018 when Lesnar beat Braun Strowman for the vacant title after Reigns relinquished it. When WWE needed a new Universal Champion, they went straight back to their old playbook and called Brock Lesnar. This wasn't creative thinking or long-term planning. This was WWE doing exactly what they always did when they needed a quick fix. The familiar cycle started all over again immediately. Lesnar would show up for big events, defend the title once every few months, and then disappear for weeks at a time. Raw went back to having a champion who existed more in Paul Heyman's promos than in actual wrestling matches. This 156-day second reign felt like watching the same movie twice, except the second time was even more frustrating because everyone knew how it would end. What made this reign even worse was watching SmackDown during the same period. Their champions were showing up every week, defending their titles regularly, and driving compelling storylines forward. The contrast was impossible to ignore. Raw looked like the minor league show, while SmackDown felt like the place where real wrestling happened. WWE had two different approaches to championship booking happening at the same time, and it was obvious which one worked better. Fans started to realize that WWE's creative process was basically a revolving door of the same 5 part-time superstars. Whenever they needed someone to hold a title or headline a show, they would just pick from Lesnar, Goldberg, Undertaker, or a few others. The company kept talking about building new stars and giving younger talent opportunities, but their actions showed they trusted nobody except the same familiar faces from years past. This second Lesnar reign confirmed that the Universal Championship was stuck in a booking cycle that helped nobody. WWE wasn't building new stars, fans weren't getting consistent entertainment, and even Lesnar seemed bored going through the same routine again. The championship desperately needed someone who would treat it like an actual wrestling title instead of a seasonal prop. Seth Rollins' first reign. Seth Rollins beat Lesnar at WrestleMania 35 and held the title for 98 days, becoming the first Universal Champion in years who actually showed up to work every single week. The crowd went wild when Rollins hit that stomp and captured the title because everyone was tired of watching part-time champions treat the Universal Championship like a seasonal job. WrestleMania 35 was supposed to be the turning point that saved the Universal Championship from its reputation as a part-time prop. Rollins walked into that main event with the weight of fan expectations on his shoulders. People wanted to believe that WWE would finally put their top title on someone who cared enough to defend it regularly and build compelling storylines around it. What happened next was exactly what fans had been asking for since the Universal Championship was created. Rollins defended the title multiple times during his reign, appearing on Raw every week and treating the championship like it actually mattered. He had more title defenses in 3 months than some previous champions managed in entire years of holding the belt. For 98 days, Raw finally had a champion who showed up every week. Rollins would open shows with the Universal Championship, cut promos about defending it against all comers, and actually follow through on those promises. The title felt important again because the person holding it acted like it was important. Rollins was trying to restore credibility to a championship that had been treated like a seasonal decoration for most of its existence. He took every challenge seriously and gave fans the fighting champion they deserved. Unfortunately, this period of proper booking was destined to end in the most predictable way possible. Lesnar cashed in his Money in the Bank contract at Extreme Rules to reclaim the belt, only for Rollins to win it back at SummerSlam. This brief period proved that the Universal Championship could work perfectly with consistent booking and a committed champion. What came next would show just how tired everyone had become of the same old patterns. Brock Lesnar's third reign. Brock Lesnar's third Universal Championship reign lasted roughly 27 days, and to fans it felt like even Lesnar was over the part-time pattern. This brief reign began when Lesnar cashed in money in the bank on Rollins at Extreme Rules and ended at SummerSlam. When Lesnar's music hit after Rollins had already wrestled a grueling match, something felt different about this title win. The usual excitement wasn't there, and Lesnar himself seemed to be going through the motions rather than capturing another championship he actually wanted. The Money in the Bank cash-in happened exactly as everyone expected it would. Paul Heyman appeared with the briefcase, and within minutes the Universal Championship was back around Lesnar's waist. The whole thing felt routine rather than special, like WWE was just checking boxes on their booking checklist. 27 days is shorter than most people's summer vacations, making this the most expensive part-time job in wrestling history. Lesnar barely had time to get comfortable with the championship before he was dropping it again. Even by part-time standards, this reign felt rushed and pointless. The championship changed hands so quickly that fans barely had time to process what was happening before it was over. What made this reign strange was how disinterested Lesnar appeared during the entire process. He had gone through this routine twice before, and you could tell that the novelty had completely worn off. The championship felt more like an obligation than an achievement. WWE was still paying massive amounts of money for a champion who looked like he would rather be anywhere else. This brief reign exposed how limited WWE's creative options had become. The company kept cycling through the same handful of part-time performers because they had no other ideas for their top championship. Fans could sense that WWE was running out of ways to make these part-time reigns feel fresh or exciting. The 27-day reign marked the beginning of the end for WWE's obsession with part-time Universal Champions, though they didn't realize it yet. What came next would reveal just how complicated things could get when WWE finally put the title on someone who wanted to be there every week, but had strong opinions about how the company was being run. Seth Rollins' second reign. Seth Rollins reclaimed the Universal Championship at SummerSlam 2019 and carried Monday Night Raw on his shoulders for about 80 days while trying to be the fighting champion WWE desperately needed. This created one of the strangest situations in wrestling history, where the company's top champion was genuinely committed to showing up every single week and defending his title regularly. When Rollins beat Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam, he immediately positioned himself as Raw's savior, who would fix all the show's problems. SummerSlam felt like WWE giving Rollins another chance to prove that a full-time champion could make their flagship show successful again. Rollins embraced this responsibility and developed his Monday Night Messiah character around the idea that he was the only person who could save Raw from mediocrity. He defended the championship regularly and tried to be the fighting champion that fans wanted to see. The problem was that WWE's creative direction kept changing every few weeks during this period. Great in-ring work, but creative's shifting directions kept the title from gaining stable momentum. This created a chaotic period where even the most dedicated champion couldn't maintain consistent storylines because the company couldn't decide what they wanted to do with their own programming. What made this reign fascinating was watching Rollins try to navigate these creative problems while maintaining his championship credibility. He would defend the title against different opponents and cut promos about being Raw's leader, but you could tell he was frustrated with the constant direction changes behind the scenes. His commitment to the championship was obvious, but he was working within a system that kept undermining its own storytelling. Rollins genuinely cared about making the Universal Championship feel important again, but he was fighting an uphill battle against WWE's own booking inconsistencies. His second reign showed that even the most committed champions couldn't overcome poor long-term planning when the company kept changing its mind about basic storytelling elements. What WWE needed was something completely different from their usual approach to championship booking. The Fiend, Bray Wyatt's first reign. The Fiend's red lighting and supernatural presentation made every Universal Championship match feel like something from a horror movie, creating the most visually unique title reign in WWE history. When those crimson spotlights hit and Bray Wyatt's horror character emerged, the entire atmosphere changed from regular wrestling to something that belonged in a haunted house. The Universal Championship had never looked more ominous than when it was draped around the Fiend's waist under those eerie red lights. Bray Wyatt's transformation into the Fiend was unlike anything WWE had attempted before with a world champion. This wasn't just a character change or a new outfit. Wyatt created an entirely different persona that felt supernatural and genuinely unsettling. The Fiend moved differently, acted differently, and brought an energy to championship matches that made them feel more like horror movie scenes than traditional wrestling contests. What happened during this reign of about 118 days was completely different from every other Universal Championship run. The Fiend's matches had their own visual style that television cameras had never captured in wrestling before. His entrance alone was worth watching as the lights would dim and that haunting music would start playing while the Fiend appeared like something from a nightmare. He defended the belt against top names like Bryan and The Miz, making each title defense feel like a supernatural event. The supernatural character brought a horror movie feeling to every title defense. Opponents looked genuinely frightened when facing the Fiend, and the red lighting made every move look more dangerous and mysterious than normal wrestling action. The championship matches felt special because they looked and sounded different from anything else WWE was producing at the time. Fans were split. Some loved the creative gamble, others hated pushing the characters straight to world title level. Some people loved seeing WWE try something completely theatrical with their world championship. Others thought the horror movie presentation was too over the top and took away from the athletic competition. This reign showed that WWE could be genuinely creative with the Universal Championship when they committed to trying something different instead of cycling through the same old patterns. Unfortunately, that commitment to creative storytelling was about to be tested by something more powerful than any supernatural force: Goldberg's second reign. Goldberg beat The Fiend at Super Showdown 2020 in a very quick match, and many fans read this as a Saudi money move that destroyed months of supernatural character building. Goldberg's second Universal Championship reign wasn't about storytelling or building toward future matches. This was widely perceived as cashing in on international money, while completely destroying months of character development in the process. The Fiend had been building unstoppable momentum heading into Super Showdown 2020. WWE had spent months establishing this supernatural character as something that couldn't be beaten through normal wrestling moves or traditional strategies. The red lighting and horror movie presentation made The Fiend feel like a force of nature, rather than just another wrestler. Fans were invested in this character because it felt genuinely different from anything WWE had done before. What happened at Super Showdown shocked everyone watching. Goldberg destroyed The Fiend using the same basic moves he had been using for 20 years. The supernatural monster that had been presented as unstoppable got squashed by spears and a jackhammer like he was any other opponent. The match ended so quickly that fans barely had time to process what they were seeing. Goldberg's second reign was very short and is recorded differently depending on broadcast dates, but WWE's booking for that tour made it feel clearly tied to big-money international events. Everyone could see exactly what was happening. The company had sacrificed their own creative work because someone offered them enough cash to ignore their own storytelling. The Fiend's character was destroyed overnight for a payday. Fan backlash was immediate and brutal. People recognized this as everything wrong with WWE's approach to international shows where money mattered more than maintaining character consistency. The criticism focused on how WWE prioritized short-term financial gains over respecting their own creative process and the fans who had invested time in following these storylines. This reign became the perfect example of WWE's willingness to throw away their own work when the price was right. What came next would prove that sometimes achieving your biggest dreams can feel completely empty when everything else around you falls apart. Braun Strowman. Braun Strowman finally captured his first Universal Championship at WrestleMania 36, but the victory came with circumstances no wrestler could have prepared for. The monster among men finally reached the top of the mountain, but he had to celebrate alone because WrestleMania 36 was held without fans due to the pandemic. So Braun won the title in an empty arena. The usual roar of thousands of people was replaced by complete silence except for the sounds of wrestling moves hitting the mat. Strowman defeated Goldberg to win the Universal Championship, but instead of hearing cheers and celebration, his victory was met with the echo of his own footsteps in an empty building. This was supposed to be Strowman's moment after years of building toward a world championship reign. WWE had been positioning him as a monster who could dominate anyone, and fans had been waiting to see him finally capture the top prize. The victory itself was everything Strowman had worked toward, but it was a great personal moment that the lack of a crowd robbed of the normal drama that makes championship wins feel special. WWE recognizes Braun's reign as 141 days, and his run is mostly remembered for the Fiend swamp and cinematic-style matches that defined lockdown WWE. Every title defense took place in front of empty seats, or a handful of wrestlers acting as the audience. The energy that live crowds bring to championship moments was completely absent, making even his biggest victories feel muted and less significant than they should have been. Strowman tried to make the best of an impossible situation, but there were only so many creative options available when the entire entertainment industry was shut down. He defended the title regularly and maintained his monster character, but everything felt diminished by the lack of audience participation. This reign proved that timing matters just as much as talent in professional wrestling. Strowman deserved better than winning his first world championship in front of nobody, but what happened next would make his pandemic reign look like a model of consistency and long-term planning. The Fiend's second reign. WWE gave Bray Wyatt the Universal Championship, back only to snatch it away faster than someone returning a broken toaster to Amazon. This 6-day run became a perfect example of chaotic, short-term booking that wasted momentum. The Fiend's second reign became the perfect example of everything wrong with the company's hot-shotting approach to championship booking. For one brief moment at SummerSlam 2020, it looked like WWE might actually fix the mess they had created with the Fiend character. When Bray Wyatt recaptured the Universal Championship from Braun Strowman, fans felt a spark of hope that maybe the company would give this supernatural character the treatment he deserved. The victory felt like the beginning of a redemption story after the Goldberg disaster had destroyed months of character building. What could have been a compelling comeback story turned into wrestling's version of a cruel joke. The Fiend held the Universal Championship for about a week, with WWE recognizing it as 6 days before losing it again. Most people take longer vacations than the Fiend's second championship reign. WWE had given fans just enough time to get excited about the possibilities before pulling the rug out from under everyone. Payback. 2020's triple threat match ended. The Fiend's second reign almost before it started. The match itself didn't matter because everyone could see what was happening. WWE was treating their world championship like a hot potato that nobody could hold for more than a few days. This wasn't storytelling. This was panic booking disguised as creative decision-making. This disaster destroyed whatever credibility the Fiend character had left after the Goldberg situation. Fans stopped taking the supernatural monster seriously because WWE kept proving they didn't take him seriously either. You can't build a compelling character when you constantly undermine that character with your own booking decisions. The Fiend's second reign became the ultimate symbol of WWE's complete inability to commit to long-term storytelling. But sometimes the most chaotic booking decisions create opportunities for something completely unexpected to emerge from the wreckage. Roman Reigns' second reign. Roman Reigns walked back into WWE as a completely different person than the one who had left during his battle with leukemia. When he returned at SummerSlam 2020, something had changed. The crowd reactions were different, his attitude was different, and most importantly, his character was about to become something fans had never seen before. This wasn't the same Roman Reigns that people had mixed feelings about for years. The heel turn that followed transformed Reigns into the tribal chief, and suddenly everything clicked into place. He wasn't trying to be the good guy that everyone wanted to cheer anymore. Instead, he embraced being the head of his family and the person who controlled everything around him. This character felt natural and authentic in ways that his previous personas never had. What happened next was the longest Universal Championship reign in the title's history. Reigns held that championship for 1,316 days, one of WWE's longest world title runs. This wasn't just a long reign, though. This was over 3.5 years of consistent storytelling that made the Universal Championship feel like the most important prize in wrestling. His tribal chief heel turn, the Bloodline family booking, and regular TV defenses made the belt feel important again. The Bloodline storyline became WWE's most successful long-term booking project in years. Reigns worked with family members like Jey Uso, Jimmy Uso, and eventually Solo Sikoa to create compelling television that lasted for multiple years. Fans became invested in the family dynamics and power struggles within the group. This wasn't just about championship matches. This was about family loyalty and respect. Reigns proved that consistent long-term storytelling could make any championship feel prestigious. His dominance restored credibility to a title that had been treated like a hot potato for most of its existence. The Universal Championship finally felt important because the person holding it treated it with respect and defended it against worthy challengers. This reign was so successful that Reigns unified both titles at WrestleMania 38 and defended them together as the undisputed WWE Universal Champion, though WWE officially maintained both lineages. After 8 years of chaos, the Universal Championship had finally found its purpose, even if that purpose meant the end of its independent existence. The belt's chaotic history shows adding championships doesn't fix booking problems. Consistency and long-term storytelling do. From Balor's injury-shortened inaugural reign to the part-time cycles of Lesnar and Goldberg, from pandemic-era challenges with Strowman to the eventual long-term stabilization under Reigns' Tribal Chief run, the Universal Championship's journey proved that proper planning matters more than shiny new titles. Roman's record-breaking reign demonstrated that if WWE commits to consistent booking, any championship can be made important. The Universal Championship spent 8 years teaching WWE that creating new problems is easier than solving old ones, but sometimes those lessons lead to the best storytelling they've produced in years. Which Universal reign annoyed you the most, and which actually mattered? Drop your pick below. Like and subscribe for 1,000 years of luck.